I just got back from taking a load of small calves to the vet, and right now I got these animals on a 2-to-1 corn to distiller grains ration. So if you take a look, I'm feeding them 2 parts corn and 1 part distiller grains, and I've got the 5 animals picked for the animals that are going to market this week. Oh, but I got them picked. I don't know, but there's one right there. There's another one right there. There's a big old black heifer, and then I got a big black steer, and then I got another Brangus animal in here somewhere. But I picked the 5 that I'm going to be taking to market this week. Oh, they'll be hitting the scale probably at about 550, 600, and so that's the target weight right now. Okay, so today I figured I'm gonna talk about the numbers. So I've been looking at numbers, and I always say it's okay, here's the thing. I've talked about this before, but like, don't take anybody's opinion. Most people, it does not matter who they are. It could be your mom, your dad, it could be your best friend, it could be your cousin. Most people's opinions are worthless. Legitimately worthless. Legitimately, it's like if you take their opinion, it will legitimately make you do worse. Granted, it's like when it comes to running a business, I'm not saying, like if your mom and dad tells you not to do drugs, then don't do drugs. But when it comes to business, I've already talked about the big idea. It does not, it does not matter. It could be your buddy, pal. It could be your cousin. It could be your uncle. It could be your mom. It could be your dad. Don't take business advice from anybody, especially if they don't know what they're doing. Right? It's worthless. Genuinely, you're better off just not. I've already talked about this, but and I'm not saying go and disrespect your parents. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying go and disrespect your family. And I've talked about this idea before. But if you're going to tell somebody about your dreams and your goals, also be ready to kick them into a hole, because nobody. Okay, here's the thing about money, and I've talked about this. But if somebody actually knew how to make a large sum of money, they would be doing it. The reason they don't is because they can't, right? Like this farm right here makes about $14,000 a month. There are a lot of cattlemen on the planet who cannot make $14,000 a month. Even if you give them 1,000 acres, they can't make $14,000 a month. And I managed to do it on a 10.5 acre piece of land running commercial cattle. And this is what I do. This is how I do it. Right, yesterday, I remember, yesterday, and I'm not saying disrespect your parents, but, and I actually thought that this was kind of funny, this was kind of interesting, but, like, I got into an argument, and, and my mother threatened to fire me from my job, and I said, what a worthless threat. Like, you would be doing me a favor if you fired me, like, legitimately, because it's like, I don't need the money. I definitely don't need the money, right? Legitimately, I'm making more than enough money running cattle to essentially do whatever I want, right? Like, if I lost my day, let's say I lost my day job, right? Let's say I lost my day job, boo-hoo. I don't care about the few $1,000s a month. I don't. If I have an extra 40 hours a week, I'll just run more cattle. Right, I could go and get a part-time job somewhere and just run more cattle, and I will legitimately make all of the money back. I legitimately, it's like, how did you come up with such a worthless threat? You threatened me with money. That's the one thing. It's like I'm in the top 0.007 percentile of all earners in the entire country, and you threatened me with money. Like, what a worthless threat. Right? It's like, what a worthless idea. Right? It's like, don't threaten to fire me ever again. I straight up just said, if you ever threaten to fire me again, you will legitimately never see me again. You will never see me again. Right? Legitimately, what a worthless threat. I'm in the top 0.007 percentile of all earners in the entire country for the year, and you threatened me with money. What a worthless threat, right? Legitimately, there's only 20,000 people in the entire country that made as much money as me over the last year. Only 20,000. And you threatened me with money. What a worthless threat, right? It's like, what a worthless idea. And it's like, but here's the thing, okay? When I talk about money, here's what the numbers look like right now, and And when I talk about things, I always say think objectively, right? Think objectively. Think objectively, and then go in a forward direction, right? I mean, you need to, I would highly, okay, and this is something that I personally do. I do this in my life. I make a boatload of money, and this is what I do. That's essentially what I'm saying. If somebody has an opinion, and okay, here's the thing. It's like, you know the old saying, you got to walk the talk. If you talk but you don't walk, you're a moron. If you say that you can do something and you cannot do it at all, you're a moron. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, you need to take a good hard look at your situation. Like, if you're all talk, if you're all bark and no bite, that's not good, right? Like, if you're gonna bark, you need to bite. And so, this is actually what I do. And I'm telling you, this is what I do, and this is the direction that I'm going in. I'm thinking in a forward direction, and I'm thinking objectively correctly, right? And this is what I'm talking about. If the feeder cattle market okay, so I don't think that the economy is going to roll over right now. I don't really see anything that's like the economy is just going to flat out roll over. Maybe we're headed for a correction. I mean, we're already in correction territory, and that's fine. I mean, corrections happen, right? I mean, they happen all the time. I don't really see anything that's like the market's going to fall over any minute now. And the fundamentals for the cattle market are still in place. We're still at low inventories. Grain prices are low, et cetera, right? And so the fundamentals for the cattle market are still in place. Probably the cattle market is probably not going to fall apart within the next 6 months. It's probably not. I mean, we had a correction, and that's fine. I mean, a correction, it just is what. I mean, it's not a big deal, right? I mean, it's not like the markets fell apart. I don't see any fundamental reason for the cattle market to fall apart as of right now. And so with things going how they are going as of right now, I make about I make about $6,000 or $7,000 a month net profit. That's how much money I make. That's how much cash I bring home every month. And right now I got 43 animals. And I have it's about 65,000 in debt. So I have about 65,000 in debt, and the target weight for my herd right now is 550. The target average weight for my herd is 550. And if I need to, I can increase the target weight, but I don't see a need to as of right now. Like, if I have animals die, a significant amount of animals die, then I can increase my target weight, etc., etc. There are different ways that I can solve this problem, right? I mean, the solution is not ever just roll over and just throw a pissy fit and hope everything works out. That's never the answer. Right? Like, if I need to increase my margin per animal, I will raise the overall weight of my animal. Right? I mean, I've already talked about this solution repeatedly in the past. And so it's like I have 43 animals and I have about 65,000 in debt. If I keep my herd steady at 45 animals, I can reduce my debt burden as well by about $7,000 a month. So it's like next month I will have 45 animals and I will have 58,000 in debt. The next month I will have 45 animals and 51,000 in debt. The next month I will have 45 animals and 44,000 in debt, etc., etc. And by the time I get to the point where it's like I owe about $1,000 per animal, I am essentially massively in the green. I could liquidate my 45 animals and legitimately have like $25,000 cash left over, even after I liquidate my animals. I could legitimately liquidate all of my animals, pay off all of my debt, and I will still have $25,000 cash left over. And that's after about 4 months. Right? I mean, and here, and I actually, the big thing about this that I thought was interesting, the reason that it got me so worked up was because, like, it's not just, and I'm not saying disrespect your parents, but I'm saying it just happened to be my mother who brought this up to me. And I really thought about it, and I was like, that's not even a viable argument to me anymore. Legitimately, like, if I lost my day job tomorrow, I would go from running 45 cattle to running 60 cattle. And if I went from running 45 cattle to running 60 cattle, I would go from making $6,000, $7,000 a month to making $9,000 a month. And if I make $9,000 a month, I can essentially do whatever I want, right? I mean, I could even, I go and get a day job, whatever, right? $2,000 a month, and I'm making $11,000 a month. I can do whatever I want. It's like, why would you threaten me with money? I'm in there's only 20,000 people in the entire country that made as much money over the last year as me. Why would you threaten me with money? That's the one thing that I legitimately, it's like, I'm legitimately in the top 0.007 percentile of all earners in the entire country for the year. Why would you threaten me with money? Are you dumb? I mean, it's like, what kind of a worthless argument was that? I mean, and it's like, that could be anybody. It's like, if I go and get a job, it's like, it's like, if I go and get a job somewhere, it's like, the money is irrelevant. The money is irrelevant. Like, legitimately, if I want more money, I'll just run more cattle. I'll legitimately just run more cattle. This business makes me like $7,000 a month. When I have grass, when I'm growing grass, I legitimately make like $11,000, $12,000 a month. Right now I have my animals on a commodity feed that I'm feeding to them, legitimately mixing them their entire feed, and I'm still making like $7,000 a month. I mean, money, it's like money, it's like, it's practically irrelevant. It's like me, as long as I continue to run cattle, I essentially have more money than I could ever use. Ever. Legitimately, I could just run, if I want more money, I'll just run more cattle. Right? I mean, what a worthless, but I mean, and I'm not saying like my parents are, I'm not saying my parents are worthless. I'm just saying that the argument itself was worthless. And, a lot of people, and it's like, I'm not, I'm saying a lot of people, and y'all know, it's like when I go out and I talk to people just at large, when we talk about business, like if we're going to talk about money, most people are borderline like handicapped. Like the worst deals that I have ever heard in my life would not touch that deal with a 50,000-foot pole, and they, for some reason, have considered it a good idea. I don't know how they came up with the possibility that it was a good idea, but it was legitimately the worst deal that I have ever seen in my entire life. And they somehow believe that it was a good idea. A lot of people are like this, and I've talked about this in terms of farming. It's like most people are borderline a bum. 1 foot away from being a bum. All the time at everything. Legitimately, whatever we're talking about, if I got a homeless person and put him in that spot to do what they do, they would be doing, those two people would do about the same. It does not matter what we're talking about. Borderline a bum. If you put me and a bum on a field and said, you two have to go farm, I would obliterate that bum. Right? I mean, it would not even be close. And, and it's like a lot of people are like this. And it's like, I don't know how you possibly came up with that idea. That you could go from being 1 foot away from being a bum to legitimately the best farmer on the entire planet. Legitimately competing for the #1 spot. How did you possibly come up with that idea? It's not, I mean, it's like, are you dumb? Like, have you sat there and actually thought about what you're going to say? Like, what a worthless, I mean, it's like, how worthless can it get? I did not think it could get worse, and then it got worse, right? I mean, legitimately. Most people, and it's like when I go and I talk to somebody, and they're like, "Oh my God, I got 500 acres, and I got 200 mama cows on my 500 acres." It's like, are you dumb? Right? Are you legitimately dumb? Is something wrong with you? Why are you proud of that? You have 500 acres of grassland, and you only got 200 mama cows on it. What are you possibly doing? Right, like legitimately, if you legitimately planted that 500 acres and supplemented their feed with a minimal amount of like even distiller grains or corn distiller grains mixture, you could legitimately double the number of cattle that you are running. There is legitimately zero reason why you cannot run at least 1 cow-calf pair per acre. Legitimately zero reason. There was legitimately, I mean, you should probably, and it's like, I don't know how you ended up that way. And I always say, keep your BS to yourself, right? And you should be considering the money. I make about $14,000 a month running cattle on a 10.5 acre field. I mean, you should consider that. You know, here within the next 6 months, as soon as I get my debt a little bit more squared away, I want to get my debt squared away. But when I get my debt squared away, I'm going to be increasing the size of my herd to about 60. And then at that point, I'll be making closer to like $18,000, $20,000 a month on a 10.5 acre field running commercial cattle. And you should be considering the money. Legitimately, you know, and it's like when you take a look at what I'm doing, there are only 20,000 people in the entire country that managed to make as much money as me over the last year. Only 20,000. And I'm probably the only farmer. You know, you might have somebody who bought Bitcoin, right? I mean, you might have somebody, whoever, they made some computer chip in their apartment and then they sold it to, they sold the software for it or whatever, right? I mean, there are legitimately only 20,000 people in the entire country that made money like me over the last year. There's 333.3 million people in the entire country, and there's only 20,000 of people like me. 0.007 percentile. Like legitimately, like, well, it's like one in, I don't even know what's 20,000 over 333.3 million, right? And it's like, if you're going to go and you're going to try and become a farmer, like, you're not going to be able to do it, not overnight. You legitimately need to consider the possibility that you will have to work every day for 15 years, every day. And the number one spot is the number one spot for a reason. There is nobody else. Legitimately, if you put me on a field with 100,000 other farmers and you said, we're going to see who can make the most money, I would probably wreck the crap out of everybody. I mean, it wouldn't even be close. The other people would look handicapped. I mean, you know, in this farm, and it's like, you know, and it's like, if I lost my day job, I legitimately don't care. So don't threaten me with losing a job. I don't care about the job. I don't. Right? I legitimately don't care about the job at all. Not at all. Legitimately, I will walk away from the job and you will never see me again. And I will live I will live completely fine. I can just run my cattle. I'll legitimately just raise 50% more cattle. And boom, there's the money back. I legitimately don't care. Right? I mean, I don't. But that's the realization that I came to yesterday, is that, like, when it comes to money, as long as I run cattle, I can essentially have as much money as I would ever use, ever. On a 10.5 acre field, I'm making like $14,000 a month, 14 grand. I'm going to get some of my debt squared away. And once I'm at about 45 animals and $45,000 worth of debt, I'm going to purchase more animals. Because at that point, if I have 45 animals, let's take a look at the current state of my assets. When I take a look at the current state of my assets, I would say that the average weight of my herd right now is probably about 450 pounds. About 80 to 90% of my animals are number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame commodity animals. About 80 to 90% of them are average weight about 450 pounds. I would say that if I liquidated all of my animals, I would get about $1,200 per animal on the average, right? $1,200, maybe $1,100. But every single month that goes by, the average weight of my herd essentially goes up by about 75, 90 pounds a month. So right now they're at 450. Next month they're going to be at about 525, 500. They're at about 400, 450. By next month, this time next month, they'll be about 75, 90 pounds heavier. This is how I think. This is what I think about. And if they're 75 to 90 pounds heavier, I'll essentially make an extra $100 an animal, right? The $100, I'll go from making about 11. Like, if I have an average weight of 550, I'll probably make about $1,300 per animal, $1,400 per animal. And right now I would make about $1,300. So I'm essentially going to make an extra $150 an animal. Multiply that by 45. That's like $7,500. Right? So it's like, I can this is how I think about numbers. I take a look and I assess my assets for what are they valued at, how much do I owe, and what does my balance sheet look like? If I have 45 animals and I owe $65,000 in debt, and I have 40, and I have an average weight of 450, and 80 to 90% of my animals are a body, a number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame animal at a body conditioning score of 6, then my balance sheet does not look good. Not right now. But next month, when the average weight of my herd has gone up, the average weight of my herd is not going to go up because I always take my biggest animals to market, right? I take my biggest animals to market, so essentially the average weight of my herd is going to hover at about 400, 450 the entire time. But if I take my animals to market and I reduce my debt burden, I go from having 65,000 in debt to having 58,000 in debt, then I still have the same 45 animals, 80 to 90% of them number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame, body conditioning score 6, 400, 450 pounds, but I owe less money. And then the next month I do that, I owe less money again. So I still have the same type of asset, I still have the same number of assets, but I have less debt burden. And I can also do this the other way around. If I want to keep my debt burden the same, but I want to increase the number of animals that I'm running, if I want to increase the number of assets that I have, I can also reduce my debt burden by doing that. But I'm not going to do that because my farm right now is running at about maximum capacity. If I overfill my preconditioning pens, that's not going to be good. And so, my farm as right now is essentially running at practically maximum capacity. And so I'm going to reduce my debt burden and keep the number of animals that I am running the same. And that's essentially what I'm going to be doing. This is also what I mean by forward thinking, taking a look at the numbers. I talk about this idea all the time. Yes, you should be considering the money. Think about the money. I'm not saying money is everything, but I would highly suggest, in terms of me, what I do, I think about the money. I sit there and I take a look at it. How much money is this going to cost me? How much money am I going to make back? I'm going to put $550 into my business and I'm going to make $11,000 back. I'm going to put $750 into my business and I'm going to make $10,000 back. I think about that. How do I do that, right? Well, my soil right now, about 2 weeks ago, I applied 25 pounds of nitrogen, and I also applied that nitrogen at a 5:1:3:1 NPK sulfur ratio fertilizer, and I saw a slight bit of improvement in the biomass accumulation of the grass. But over the next 3 days, I'm supposed to be having cloudy weather. It's supposed to be 75, 80 degrees in the afternoon. I got 55, 60 degrees in the evening, and I'm anticipating that I get about half an inch of rain a day for 3 days straight. So over these next 3 days, I'm going to apply 1 tonnage of an ammonium sulfate urea mixture. And that's going to cost me about $500. And when I do that, my biomass accumulation for my grass should be at near optimum levels. And when my biomass accumulation for my grass is at near optimal levels and the feed qualities of the grass are at proper stages, right? It's at early stage of flowering, late stage of vegetation, about 12 to 14% protein, about 60% energy, 65% energy. I can legitimately put cattle on the grass. I can put 5 cattle per acre on the grass, and they will legitimately put on like 3 pounds a day if I just feed them a little bit of corn on top of the grass. Legitimately. And it costs me about $550 a month. I can feed about 40, 50 cattle straight grass on 10.5 acres. I could legitimately probably feed even 60 cattle. If they, 60 cattle on just straight grass and feed them a little bit of corn every day, and it's going to cost me like $750 a month, and I could legitimately raise like 60 animals. Right? And when I raise those 60 animals, I legitimately make like 12 grand for that $1,000 a month investment. And so, think about it like that. Think about it in terms of objective information. What should I do moving forward? Why am I going to do this, right? And then think about the money as well. How much money is it going to cost me and how much money am I going to make on it? If I put number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame animals on a field of grass and they're 350 pounds and the feed qualities of the grass are at the right stages, the grass is at the right stage of development for proper feed values, and I put these animals on the grass, how much money am I going to make? How much do I anticipate that each animal is going to put on every day? How much money do I anticipate that I'm going to make? How much money do I anticipate that it's going to cost me, right? It's going to cost me about $1,000 a month, and for that $1,000 a month, I'll make about 12 grand. Well, that's a good plan. and it's realistically possible. So it's time to get after it, right? I mean, think about it like that. That's what I'm doing right now, right? The average weight of my herd is probably about 400, 450. I don't see any fundamental weakness in the feeder cattle market. You know, the overall economy is probably just having a correction. We'll probably be fine. You know, and when I take a current look at the state of my assets, it's like my assets right now, you know, I got about 43 animals. 80 to 90% of them are 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame. Body conditioning score 6. I owe 65,000 in debt. But if I keep, but my farm is essentially, you know, my preconditioning pens are full. And so if I keep my farm running at maximum capacity, you know, I'm not going to push my farm over maximum capacity, because then I'm going to start having problems. And if I keep my farm stable at 45 animals, and I essentially take the money that I'm making off of my farm and just cover my debt with it, I can essentially get myself to a situation where the debt becomes negligible. Like if I have 45,000 in debt and I have 45 animals, and my animals are 80 to 90% 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame, body conditioning score 6, 400 to 450 pounds, the debt is negligible. I could legitimately just liquidate my animals on the spot, pay back all of my debt, and I will still have like $30,000 of cash left over. Legitimately. And that's after about 4 months. So in about 4 months, I'll legitimately have about $30,000 cash left over from just the cattle business. So, I mean, you know, that's what I'm doing moving forward. I'm going to take care of some of my debt. You know, because I can do it the other way, right? I can increase the number of cattle that I'm running. But if I increase the number of cattle that I'm running, my farm is going to be at overcapacity for the preconditioning pens. You know, my preconditioning pens are full. And so, you know, I don't want to overload my preconditioning pens. And so I'm going to take care of some of my debt. I'm not going to increase the number of animals that I'm running. I'm going to take care of some of my debt. And that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.